Hello. Chapter 20. A little earlier, that same afternoon, Max had met Abby as she climbed off her bus. After the art college, he'd gone back to school to collect his bike, and now he was pushing it, with Esme's enormous portfolio balanced on the handlebars. "You got it!" Abby exclaimed as soon as she saw what he was carrying. "Yep." "Didn't Esme mind?" "I didn't see her. She'd already handed it to Danny's mum, so I had to nick it." "Nick it? What else could I do? We'll just have to put it out of sight when she comes back with Louis." "You were right to take it," admitted Abby. "We have to have it. And we've got to think quickly of a way to use it before Iffen comes again." She looked nervously over her shoulder as she spoke. All at once the street seemed very long. "Would he come if Louis wasn't there?" asked Max. "I don't know," said Abby, walking more quickly, almost running. "Perhaps. Let's not put any lights on when we get in." "Why not?" "So it doesn't look like anyone's home if he's watching the house." The thought of Iffen watching the house was so uncomfortable that Abby began to talk very fast to distract herself. "I've been thinking all day about how we could get him to go back. Iffen, I mean. I'm sure it's possible, because it happened with an animal once before." Max stopped pushing his bike to look at her in amazement and ask what she was talking about. "Do you remember I told you about the raft in the book? There was a parrot on that raft, a tame parrot. I saw it clearly. It flew towards me just as Louis called my name, and then swerved away again. I think Louis saw it, just for a moment. I remember he asked me, 'What was that green?' So, if the parrot could come out of a book, then go back in, Iffen should be able to do the same. I hope. What colour eyes do lions and panthers have in the dark?" "What?" "I just wondered if you knew." "No, I don't. Why are you scaring yourself?" "I'm not." "Well, you're scaring me. Hurry up, let's get inside." They'd reached the house. Abby fumbled for her door key. If she'd taken a minute longer and looked back, she'd have seen Louis behind them, just turning the corner. But she didn't do that. She found the key quickly, unlocked the door, and stood aside to let Max go in with his bike. "You first," said Max calmly, but he followed behind her fast enough and closed the door very swiftly. "Dump your bike and bring Esme's book into the rocking horse room," said Abby. "We'll have some light from the street lamp in there." Max obeyed and followed her into the room, pale in its dust sheets, lit from outside, not dark, but not light, with its shadowed grey walls. A cave of a room. Together, he and Abby put the book on the sofa, and had already opened it, turned past the maps, and the bison, and the outlines of the bears. They come to a page of horses when the pounding began on the door. For a moment they stared at each other in shock. Then Abby spun round to go to the window, and Max grabbed her back. "Don't show yourself," he whispered, and then went quickly forward, slipping around the room until he reached a place where it was possible to see out to the doorstep. The hammering came again, with shrieks. "It's Louis!" exclaimed Max suddenly, and ran to the front door. Louis shot inside, slammed it shut, and leaned on it. "Iffen! Iffen! Iffen!" he gasped between sobs. "Louis, don't!" said Abby, dismayed. "Iffen's not here. It's okay. Why isn't Esme with you?" Louis wept on. "Louis, stop it," said Max, taking him by his shoulders. "Look at me. Talk to me. Did you come back on your own?" Louis nodded. "All the way from after school club?" He nodded again. "They'll be going mad," said Max. "They'll call the police if we don't tell them he's okay." "I've got their number," said Abby. She was already texting Louis Valentine, home safe, to Theo, the after-school club, and Esme. "There, sent. Louis, what frightened you just now?" Louis blubbered and snuffled into his sleeve. "You have to tell us what happened, Lou," said Max, but Louis shook his head and wouldn't, until Abby, inspired, said, "Come into the rocking horse room. I'm going to jump you up onto Rocky." That stopped the floods. Louis wobbled for a moment, rubbed his eyes, and looked up at Abby in surprise. "You said I couldn't." "I've changed my mind," said Abby. "Blow your nose properly." "That's a dust sheet." "Oh, never mind. There, hold on tight. Okay." Louis managed a shaky smile as Abby started Rocky moving, his street lamp shadow rocking too, huge against the white-sheeted sofa. "Now, tell us why you're in such a state," said Max. howling and hammering on the door like that. What frightened you? Did you see Iffin? Asked Abby. No, said Louis, feeling much better now that he was home with Abby and Max and actually riding Rocky at last. Why have you got Esme's book? Louis, you know how Iffin isn't ordinary. He's real, like the snow and the shell, but he's magic too. The way Theo can't see him, the way he grew so quickly. We talked about it, didn't we? Yes. And I said I thought he'd come out of a book, and said you hadn't read any books. I haven't, but books have pictures as well as words. You remember Max in your room yesterday, all covered in chalk dust, after he got you down from the ivy and we pushed the door open and Iffin jumped out the window? Louis nodded. That chalk dust was from the world Esme drew in her art book. Max saw it. He was there. He told us about seeing the animals running. Yes, said Louis. Louis, said Max, joining in. It was a big herd of bison, young ones and old ones, so close I could feel the ground shaking. The track was dry and there was chalk dust like a cloud, and after they'd passed me I saw why they were running like that. Why were they? There were 3 big cats hunting them, 2 running alongside, 1 behind. I saw them just for a moment, outlined in the dust. Big cats, lion-sized, like Iffin.